The promotion announcement lasted less than 30 seconds, but it shattered 3 years of sacrifice in a single breath. Every employee inside the towering office in downtown Chicago applauded as another name echoed across the conference room. At the very back stood Grace Harper, the woman who had arrived before sunrise for 3 straight years, skipped birthdays, canceled vacations, stayed through countless weekends, and carried the company through its darkest financial crisis. She forced a smile while everyone celebrated. Then she quietly picked up the folder she had prepared for her first day as department director and dropped it into the trash. No one noticed the tears she refused to let fall. No one noticed that the company's strongest pillar had just decided to walk away forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness should never be taken for granted and that hard work deserves respect, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Grace had never imagined success would feel this lonely. At 32, she had built a reputation across Chicago as the employee who never complained. Friends often joked that the office lights probably turned themselves on whenever Grace arrived. She laughed with them, but deep inside, she knew the truth. Work had become her entire life. After losing both parents within 2 years, she had buried herself in responsibilities because staying busy hurt less than facing an empty apartment every evening. 3 years earlier, Nathan Brooks, the ambitious CEO of Brooks Financial Group, had personally hired Grace after being impressed by her ability to solve impossible problems during the interview. She wasn't the loudest person in the room or the one who constantly demanded recognition. Instead, she quietly fixed mistakes before anyone noticed them, trained struggling coworkers without asking for credit, and often stayed late helping new employees succeed even when it wasn't her responsibility. When the company nearly lost its biggest client during an economic downturn, Grace worked 70-hour weeks rebuilding trust with customers. She designed new strategies that saved millions of dollars. When the accounting department became overwhelmed, she volunteered to assist despite already carrying the workload of 2 people. Her co-workers admired her dedication, but many assumed her promotion was only a matter of time. Nathan believed the same. At least, that was what Grace believed. Months before the annual promotion meeting, Nathan had repeatedly hinted that big opportunities were coming. Grace never demanded promises. She simply continued doing what she always did, working harder than anyone else. The morning of the announcement arrived with bright sunshine pouring through the glass walls of the company's headquarters. Employees gathered around coffee stations, whispering excitedly about the upcoming promotions. Grace wore the navy blue blazer her mother had bought before she passed away. It had become her lucky jacket. She looked at herself in the mirror before leaving home and quietly whispered that today would finally make all the sacrifices worth it. Then everything changed. Nathan stepped onto the stage, smiled proudly, and announced that Michael Carter, an employee who had joined only 8 months earlier, would become the new director of operations. The room exploded with applause. Grace stood perfectly still. Her heartbeat slowed. Her hands became cold. She wasn't angry because Michael had received success. Michael was talented and kind. What broke her heart was realizing that 3 years of loyalty had somehow become invisible. Nathan glanced toward Grace, expecting her usual supportive smile. Instead, he saw something he'd never witnessed before. Silence. Not bitterness. Not rage. Just disappointment, so deep it couldn't be hidden. The following morning, Grace arrived earlier than usual. She organized every project, updated every report, labeled every password, prepared detailed instructions for every ongoing assignment. Then she placed a simple envelope on Nathan's desk. Inside was a resignation letter. No dramatic speech. No accusations. Only one handwritten sentence beneath her signature. Sometimes being overlooked hurts more than being overworked. Nathan read the letter twice. Before the words truly reached him, he rushed toward Grace's office. Her desk was already empty. Her family photograph was gone. The coffee mug coworkers had gifted her during her first anniversary had disappeared. The office suddenly felt colder. Nobody had imagined Grace would actually leave. The following weeks revealed something Nathan had never understood. Projects began falling apart. Departments stopped communicating efficiently. Customer satisfaction declined. Deadlines were missed. Employees who had quietly relied on Grace suddenly realized how much she had carried without ever mentioning it. The company wasn't collapsing because Grace had been the boss. It was collapsing because she had been its heart. Nathan worked late every evening trying to replace what had been lost. He hired consultants, organized emergency meetings, promoted assistants. Nothing worked. Every solution only reminded him how many invisible problems Grace had solved before anyone even noticed they existed. One evening, Nathan opened an old folder containing employee evaluations. Page after page described Grace with the same words: reliable, compassionate, selfless, leader, trusted. Then he found something that made him stop breathing for a moment. 3 years earlier, his late father, the company's founder, had written a personal note after observing Grace during her probation period. One day you'll discover that leadership isn't measured by titles, but by the people who quietly carry everyone else. Don't lose someone like Grace. Nathan slowly closed the folder. For the first time in years, success no longer felt satisfying. It felt empty. Determined to make things right, Nathan searched everywhere. Former coworkers hadn't heard from her. Friends knew little. Social media remained silent. Finally, nearly 2 months later, one retired client mentioned seeing Grace volunteering at a community education center on Chicago's South Side. Nathan drove there immediately. He expected to find someone bitter. Instead, he found Grace teaching financial literacy to struggling single parents, helping them budget groceries, avoid debt, and build hope for their children's futures. She looked happier than she ever had inside the corporate office. Children laughed nearby. Families thanked her. No expensive conference rooms. No executive titles. Just genuine purpose. Nathan stood quietly, realizing he'd spent years measuring success by profits while Grace measured success by people. When she finally noticed him, surprise crossed her face. He apologized sincerely, not because the company needed her, but because he had failed to value someone who deserved appreciation long before she resigned. Grace listened patiently. She didn't interrupt. She didn't seek revenge. She simply explained that promotions mattered less than respect. For 3 years, she had believed her efforts were building something meaningful. The promotion itself wasn't what hurt. Being invisible was. Nathan admitted he had focused too heavily on impressive presentations, confident speeches, and visible achievements while overlooking quiet consistency. Grace had never advertised her sacrifices. She simply made everyone else's jobs easier. Ironically, that made her accomplishments almost impossible to notice. Nathan asked her to return, not as director, not even as vice president. He offered something much greater, a partnership in redesigning the company's culture from the inside. He wanted every employee to feel seen, every contribution recognized, every quiet worker appreciated before reaching the breaking point. Grace didn't answer immediately. Instead, she spent several days thinking carefully. During those days, she realized something unexpected. Leaving had reminded her that her value never depended on someone else's decision. She had rediscovered confidence that promotions could never give and rejection could never take away. Eventually, she agreed, but only under one condition. The community center where she volunteered would become one of Brooks Financial Group's permanent charity partners. Employees would receive paid volunteer days. Leadership evaluations would include kindness, mentorship, and integrity, not just financial performance. Nathan accepted every condition without hesitation. Over the next year, the company transformed. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Young professionals found mentors. Managers received leadership training focused on listening instead of commanding. Recognition became part of everyday culture instead of an annual ceremony. Customers noticed the difference too. The company grew faster than ever before, not because strategies changed, but because people finally felt valued. Nathan often reflected on the day Grace walked away. He realized she hadn't abandoned the company. She had rescued it. Sometimes losing your best employee is the only thing that teaches you why they were your best employee in the first place. Grace eventually became known throughout the organization not because of the title on her office door, but because of the lives she changed. New employees heard her story during orientation, not as a warning, as a reminder that every person deserves appreciation before exhaustion replaces hope. A reminder that loyalty should never be mistaken for endless endurance. Most importantly, a reminder that true leaders don't simply reward loud success. They recognize quiet faithfulness long before it disappears. If this story touched your heart, please don't scroll away without supporting the channel. Like this video, share it with someone who works hard without recognition, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and let others know that kindness is never wasted. Speech balloon special request. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever worked hard and felt overlooked? What happened afterward? As Grace walked through the company's lobby on her first day back, employees stopped what they were doing. Not because an executive had arrived, but because someone who had once left in silence had returned with something even more powerful than a promotion. She had returned with dignity, wisdom, and the courage to prove that real success isn't measured by the title someone gives you. It is measured by the lives you lift, the respect you earn, and the legacy you leave behind. And sometimes, the greatest promotion in life comes only after you find the strength to walk away from the place that forgot your worth.